So, welcome to lesson 50 of the movement meditations. So, today's lesson is going to be following on the previous two lessons this week to do with imagination. And today's lesson is going to be maybe going through a process that we all go through as we develop through from early stages of childhood, where we're developing the connections in our body. And even though we are whatever age we are away from those kind of early developmental moments, that doesn't mean that we don't have the same what the scientific world calls neuroplasticity available to us. So through our attention and through doing specific movements or doing actions in the world, that we can develop our body and our ability to move in a new way than the one that we are currently living in. So that is an important subject, and maybe one that I kind of want to carry on into the next series of lessons, which I haven't quite decided what I want to do yet, but I think I'm definitely going to do some lying down lessons instead of sitting up. So yeah, today's lesson, if you when you're ready, if you just come to a comfortable position to sit in. And at the beginning of this series, I kind of talked more about the meditative aspects of stuff. And, I think that as you sit there now, if you just take a moment to kind of let your senses return to yourself. So this is an important part of the learning process. If your attention is on other things, your learning's not going to be as effective. So as you bring your attention back to yourself, what do you notice? What sensations are present in yourself? What's the activity level that you feel in your thought or your emotion or your body? And then just bring your attention very gently to your breathing. So the breathing has this connection all the way through from our thought, our emotion, and our physical state. So see how you'll just sit there and feel how you're breathing initially. Have your hands placed down somewhere on your thighs. And continue to breathe, but a few times just begin to lift your right thumb away from your thigh. Just lift the right thumb a few times. And just do it a number of times and see, how it feels to you, how skillful is the right thumb. As you move it, is it a very kind of comfortable connection for you? Do you feel that you have a good degree of control over the movement of the right thumb? So, for example, can you slow it down? Could you speed it up and keep the same quality? Good. And all the time, just bringing your attention very softly, very gently to your breathing. And then move on to your index finger. And begin to lift your index finger away from your thigh and place it down. And just, again, notice your skill level. What's the sense of your own dexterity? How available is your right finger to the thing that you're trying to do? Your right index finger. Good. And then move on to your middle finger. Try moving your middle finger a few times, keeping it PG. Try moving your middle finger a few times. And notice, is there any difference between how you felt with your thumb, how you felt with your index finger, and how you feel as you're moving your middle finger? And then when you've done it a few times and you've got a sense of that, move on to your ring finger, which is the fourth finger. Again, keeping your breathing as this kind of consistent awareness, like some part of your awareness, some part of your attention is on your breath. When you've done that a few times, move on to your little finger. And if you think back through all the fingers that you've moved and the skill level of all of them. Are there some fingers that maybe you feel less access to, that you feel that aren't quite performing or aren't quite responding in the same way than others? Good. Now let go of your attention on your hand and bring your attention to your right foot. Begin to lift up your big toe, the big toe of your right foot. So your foot is on the floor, and you're just going to very gently begin to lift the right big toe and put it back down. And just notice again, what's your skill level with your right big toe? As you lift your right big toe, does it respond to your desire to move it? Or is there a delay, or is it a bit confused, or is it very stubborn? Does it not want to move? And if you then compare that with the thumb and how responsive the thumb was, can you sense some contrast between the two? Good. And then move over onto the second toe, so the one next to the big toe. Begin to lift up the second toe a few times and put it back down. Again, keeping some attention, some awareness on your breath. Lifting up the second toe, and don't look at it, don't cheat. See if you can do it through feeling. And notice, as you try and enact this movement, this detailed, specific movement of the second toe, do the other toes want to come along? Does it not respond at all? Or is it quite dexterous? Is it responding to what you want? And then when you're ready, move on to your third toe, which is the middle toe. And just think back to when you did this with your middle finger. What's the difference between moving your middle toe and moving your middle finger? Good. When you've done that a few times and you kind of feel that you understand where your middle toe is at in terms of its movement ability, move on to the fourth toe. And you may feel some of your toes are more capable. You may feel some of your toes are less capable. Good. And then finally, the small toe, the little toe. And you move the little toe independently of the other toes. Good. So hopefully you've got some sense of the difference between how mobile your hand is in relation to how mobile your foot is. Now, if you've ever seen someone that's had an injury with their arms or their hands, and they've had to utilize their feet in a different way, so as their main means of manipulating objects, their feet develop an incredible dexterity to them, to the point that there's people that can play the piano with their toes. So if you are not at that point, that's okay. There's not we're not trying to compare ourselves with people that have done that, but what we're saying is through attention and through action, we can develop our body in ways that it isn't currently developed. And there is some benefit to that, and I'll explain that at the end, but let's just take that as a given for now. Good. So have your right hand on your thigh and your right foot on the floor. And then what I'd like you to do is imagine before you do anything, before you make any movement, imagine that your right hand is the same as your right foot. Okay, so this is again the use of imagination. And what we're doing, with the imagination is we're kind of superimposing the hand onto the foot. And the brain is very interesting, especially there's certain areas in the brain responsible for certain parts of our body, and sometimes certain areas are connected to other areas. So the movement of the hand and the foot maybe are very connected in the brain, equally one hand and the other. So what I'd like you to do is imagine as you begin to move your thumb, that you're actually moving your big toe. And do it really slowly and really gently. And in your imagination, really see or feel that each time you're moving your thumb, you're moving your big toe. Like they are becoming the same thing, the same movement. There's studies in neuroscience that show that we learn in areas similar to skills we already know. So, for example, if we are a violin player, then playing another string instrument is going to be easier to pick up than playing like a French horn or whatever, drums. Learning something that's similar to what you already know is easier to learn. Good. And then see if you can swap over your attention to your little finger and your little toe. Very gently, very slowly, begin to lift your little finger and imagine, feel as if your little finger is your little toe. And each time you lift your little finger, you're actually lifting your little toe as well. So if the little toe is responding, if it's moving, that's completely okay. The thought process, the thing that you're imagining is that the two things are exactly the same. The little finger and the little toe are exactly the same. Good. Go back to the thumb. Go back to the thumb and the big toe because that's the easiest one. That's the easiest connection. And see if you can kind of get this sense that as the thumb moves, the little toe moves. As the toe moves, the thumb moves. They are the same thing. Good. And then move across to your fourth finger, the ring finger, next to the little finger. See if you can begin to move your ring finger at the same time. So it's just lifting and lowering the ring finger away from the thigh. See if you can begin to lift that finger at the same time as you lift your fourth toe away from the ground. And again, it doesn't matter if it's just in your imagination. It doesn't matter if it's actually not lifting, but it is okay if it's lifting. The toe is lifting. So as you continue to do it, again, maybe just bring your attention to your breathing. Notice how you're sitting on the chair. Can you give some attention to the rest of yourself as you do this very specific movement? The ring finger and the fourth toe moving together, moving in unison. Great. When you're ready, just do the thumb and the big toe a few more times. That's your benchmark, the thumb and the big toe, the right foot. Yeah, so you're imagining the movement and you're doing it at the same time. The thumb and the big toe moving in unison. Good. Move your attention onto your middle finger. So the middle finger is now exactly the same as the big toe. The toe and the middle finger are the same thing. And this is something that you have to do with your imagination. You have to make this connection in your imagination. So that you could imagine, it depends on, how imagination works for you, but you could visualize it. You could imagine the sensations of them being in unison. And don't be afraid to kind of cross over that border between imagination and action. So it's actually bringing your middle toe into action. And don't worry if it's responding exactly right. Keep focusing on the skill, on the dexterity of the middle finger, and let that be a guide for the middle toe. Good. Take a rest. Just close your eyes and feel down into how your hand feels, your right hand. How aware of your right hand are you? Is it because we've brought attention to it? Is it representing a larger part of your awareness now than other parts of your body? Are you disproportionately aware of your right hand than, for example, your left hand? Good. And how about your right foot in comparison with your left foot? Does it feel that just through the active awareness and these kind of subtle movements or imaginations that we're doing, is your right foot more present to you than your left foot? Good. When you're ready, put your hand back on your thigh. Just a few times, move your thumb with your big toe, imagining that they are the same thing. They're moving at the same pace, or you're imagining them moving at the same pace. Your breathing is undisturbed. And in some way, the skill level of your hand, the dexterity of your hand is being transferred through your nervous system to your toe. Good. Begin to do that same movement with the index finger and the second toe. The index finger and the second toe. Does in some way kind of bringing your attention to your hand in this way and imagining that your hand is your foot allow you to create some differentiation between the toes? Does it give you like a doorway into separating the movement of the toes out from each other so that they're not just acting in a homogeneous mass? They are individuals. So do it in your imagination. Close your eyes, keep your eyes closed, and see if you can kind of feel down into the hand and the foot and the toes moving in this way. The index finger and the second toe. Good. And then move across, move one by one. So from the index finger, go to the middle finger and the middle toe, and then move across to the ring finger, which is the fourth finger and the fourth toe, and just do them one by one. Can you go through your fingers one by one in such a way that allows you to differentiate your toes? When you get over to the little finger, again, keep your attention on your breathing a little. Move your attention back to your ring finger, your fourth finger, your fourth toe. And just go through the fingers. Imagine almost like you're playing the piano. Finger by finger, a few movements with each. Each movement is connected with each toe. Each toe is playing the piano as well. You may feel as you speed up that it gets a bit confused. So for example, when I was just doing it, as I'm talking to you, I'm moving my index finger and my thumb and my big toe wants to move. See if you can kind of really slow it down, do it in such a way that as you move one finger, its corresponding toe is really encouraged to be the same as it. And consider that this is a process. It's not going to happen straight away that your toes can be playing the piano like people that have had 10 or 15 years to develop this. However, having more movement in your toes is a beneficial thing than having less movement in your toes. So as you go through this process, or processes like this that develop the flexibility or ability of your feet, that makes your feet more able to respond to the challenges of movement that we face on a daily basis. So having dexterous feet is incredibly important for our lives. And sometimes because we sit down for long periods of our life, or we don't focus on our feet as much as we do on our hands, then our feet are not as well represented neurologically. Therefore, there's a real big relevance to doing lessons like this that focus on the feet a bit, kind of giving some attention back to the feet. So you may not feel that there's some kind of dexterity that's developed between your hands and your fingers and your toes. But the more you do this, if you want to try it again on the other side, or you want to try it again on this side, these things, as you take your time, will begin to develop. This is really the nature of our developmental process. As we act, as we do things, as we pay attention to it, learning occurs, and the body will take that learning into the other things that you do in your life. So that's today's lesson. Again, I would encourage you to do it on the left side at a later point if you're interested, and maybe try it again in a week or so with the right, and see if anything's changed in the way that your feet are able to move. So yeah, that's a lesson on another lesson on the use of imagination. I hope that was interesting to you. I think it's a little bit of a fun lesson, but maybe quite quiet as well. Maybe you kind of really get this sense of a more meditative lesson from this one as well. Really, the use of our attention in this kind of slow and delicate way brings our body back into a slightly different state as well, hopefully. So thank you so much for watching. This was lesson 50. I have to say, these last series, the first series I did was a breathing series. This last series, completing it has been a challenge to me. had some stuff happening in my personal life that really changed my my daily life a little. And being able to complete these lessons is a, in my own sense, a big achievement. So I really appreciate anyone who's watched this, any of the lessons, supported me, donated. You guys are great and have really helped my own process. I've felt the encouragement, I've felt your feedback. It's really meant a lot to me. So thank you very much. I'm probably going to have a week off or so before I come back to these live lessons. But I want to keep doing them because I think it's a really great little access point for the Feldenkrais method. And maybe I might even venture into more Qigong and Tai Chi as well as we continue. So yeah, again, thank you. If you want to access any of the previous lessons, they're in my Facebook group. If you want to make a small contribution to the lesson, there's a link in the description to my PayPal account as well. Okay, thank you all for watching. I hope you have a lovely afternoon and a lovely weekend. And you can if you want to message me about my classes as well, next week they're still happening Monday and Sunday. Yeah, you can get in contact with me about that. Okay, thanks very much. Take care. Bye.